Welcome everybody again to Retired.Army, where we're digging into the retirement final. What are we on? 42 weeks? 41 weeks? I think that's what we're at.
Oh gosh, so what I post? I think 44 was last Friday, so we're like 43 now, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. So probably by the time this post will be down to about 42.
So we're the last 42 weeks of Justin's retirement journey, and he's been doing some stuff, and as well as tearing apart the house at the same time and wearing himself out and beating himself up. So welcome back to the show. Just to remind everybody, there's timestamps in the bottom. If you want, you can actually put it in 1.25x or 1.5x. It might be a little bit quicker for you and still audible, you can intelligible, so you can understand what's going on. Because sometimes we take pauses and we think about things. So it's all good.
I tend to talk slow sometimes too, so.
I do the same. So that, and then all the links to everything that we talk about will be down in the show notes, and we might have some screenshots popping up in between talking. So welcome back. Welcome back. How's everything going with you?
It's going. I'm pretty exhausted. We kind of talked off before we started recording, but yeah, I've been ripping apart an old deck at the backside of our house. It's probably about almost as old as me. So it's time, it needs to be replaced. So I ordered one of those dumpster services where they give you like 3 days and fill it up before they take it off. So they dropped it off Friday, and I've been working feverishly to get it filled up. And they'll haul it off tomorrow. So yeah, pretty smoked. I'm not a 20 something anymore, so I'm sure I'll be feeling it here later this week. But I'm still alive. I made it, and I was able to jump on the camera with you today.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it back. I've actually revisited something that I used to do in high school was pickle juice for like muscle aches.
Hmm.
Interesting, right?
Yeah. I think it probably has to do with the electrolytes. High sodium content helps you kind of rehydrate.
So maybe
So I do like pickles, but yeah, I usually dump the juice out, and
not pickle juice fan.
I'd rather just, drink a lot of water and eat a lot of salty food. I think, I hope to think it's about the same. Maybe that's just wishful thinking, though.
Yeah, I mean, you get older, you got to take care of things, and that's what retirement's all about as well. Getting to that point. So, let's talk about your ACP mentor. You said you reached out to them, and did you get responses back from them? Anything?
Yeah, so no, so I actually I got an email. Maybe it was earlier this week, I think, by the program coordinator said, "Hey, I think we found someone that kind of aligns with what your goals are." So yeah, it was kind of like I think it's a kind of like a yes, yes situation, right? Yeah, I kind of review their credentials, they kind of look at mine, and if both parties agree, you kind of get linked up. So yeah, so we've exchanged some email. He's worked in policy both in the public sector and private sector for the majority of his career. He also worked for the Department of State and kind of did some overseas work, but lives in the area. So yeah, I'm really excited. We've kind of emailed trying to get together in person because we both live relatively close to each other. I'm down in Springfield. He's up in Arlington. So, 15, 20 minutes away from each other. So hopefully the next week or two, we will actually kind of meet up in person, kind of break the ice, kind of discuss where I'm at and where I want to be. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Great. And then, so let's move on to just real quick to double back on HillVets. How's that going for you?
Good, good. So yeah, I made it in person every Tuesday. So looking forward to that. So we kind of do have some homework. So yeah, so our first bit of homework was to read rule number 2. So that's by Dr. Heidi Squire Craft. So she's actually our guest speaker for this Tuesday. So yeah, keeping up with that pretty well. I'm pretty excited about it. So they're going to tell us on Tuesday where we're holding our CapCon, which is kind of like our symposium, kind of like a capstone almost, I guess, for the program. So it'll be somewhere in the DC area. We don't know quite yet. I know last year they held it at Gallup, but they've kind of held it at some other places, throughout the history of the program in the DC area. So they give us some more details on that. So I'm pretty excited. But yeah, things are chugging along. We've had a couple of meetings with my what they call fire team, so it's kind of like your kind of subgroup So our topic is, I'm thinking, so it has to do with technology and how it relates to readiness for the military, and then also has a kind of a component to veterans as well. So that's kind of our subtopic that we're going to be briefing on during that CapCon. And there's four other groups that can have their other topics, but like the main theme is, I'm trying to think. Oh, okay. So the main theme is, I think it's readiness and military or something like that. I'm butchering it. I'm sorry. My brain is suboptimum right now, and I spent all weekend ripping this deck apart. So I didn't properly prepare for this interview this week. My apologies.
No, it's cool. Maybe we should do this every time we record. I'll just have you work out for like 18 hours and then
I
hop
know,
on for 30
just
minutes.
exactly. So no, yeah, things are going well with HillVets. So yeah, just plugging along.
Okay. And let's talk about VA and putting in a VA claim and what you've done so far and like research and anything like that.
Yeah. So one thing I kind of touched about last week, in kind of my blog post on LinkedIn, right? So about a year ago, I would say, um, because I'm a, pretty analytical person, like a very methodical. So I actually was trying to research, trying to figure out exactly like how the process works and like what's covered. Like, you feel like my foot hurts, or I get headaches or whatever. Like, where does it actually say that? And like, how is the rating determined? And like, all this kind of ambiguous information that nobody really knows. It's all just kind of the rumor mill. So no, so I found what's called kind of the schedule for rating disabilities. So it's actually, on the VA benefits website, and you can literally see every single ailment that is rated for disabilities by the VA. And so it's very, very thorough process. And I mean, it'll tell you everything, like how the flexion of your knee, if you have an injured leg, how the flexion of your knee will determine, the difference in rating percentages and things like that. So very, very interesting process. So that was kind of determined kind of the basis on how I was going to file my claim. But it also, I went through each chapter one by one just to see what's covered and what's not. And it was actually kind of interesting. I actually found some things that like you wouldn't even think is considered a disability,
Mhm.
but it is. And so you're like, wow, that's really interesting. Like I had no idea. Like, like GERD, right? That's basically like heartburn, like acid reflux. That's like a rated disability. And you just kind of think like, oh, it's just like something that it happens with old age, and we just deal with it. Well, no, I mean, it's actually, if it's something that's happened during your service, like it's actually a potential disability claim that you can file with the VA. So things like just, obscure things like flat feet, right? Like I know I've known I've had flat feet, but I didn't realize it was an actual like disability that you could get rated for. So yeah, it was very interesting. It was very kind of enlightening. So yeah, I don't know, how many people are privy to this information, but yeah, it's readily available. Just gotta find it and kind of dedicate some time to kind of reading and going through what's actually, in the schedule for ratings guide.
Yeah, I think that's like the hardest part. I mean, I'm still doing my VA rating stuff 2 years after retirement, so I haven't finished it yet. It was kind of like it was the first thing on my mind, and then I missed the deadline, and then it was the last thing on my mind. So circling back on it, like I'm finding things out about exposure to burn pits and like open flame stuff and burning of oil overseas and in deployed areas and stuff like they have like a registry for that that I'm trying to sign up for right now.
No, I mean, I do. I think it's really important. I mean, obviously, everyone kind of focus on the compensation aspect of it because you want to be compensated for basically having your body deteriorate during the time that you're, serving your nation. But I think it's really important just because you don't know how these ailments might kind of like linger, progress into like your older years. So say something that you just kind of deal with now, like a weird cough or something, but it progressively gets worse over time. Like you want to ensure that's documented while you're in service and it gets connected. So if it does get worse and you need treatment or something like that, the VA is kind of underwriting your care. So I think it's important not only to just document what bothers you now, but like I said, in case things get worse down the line in life, like you have kind of a basis for treatment that you don't have to pay for out of pocket. So kind of just, I guess, supplementing what I originally kind of learned about the ratings system, but then obviously we had kind of discussed the BDD, so the what is it?
Benefits delivery discharge.
Yeah, that benefits delivery discharge. So you can file anywhere up to, I think it's 180 days out from your approved retirement date. So that's really my goal. So I think I did the backwards calculation. So if I'm looking at like 1 April of 24, I think I can file around like the 5th of October this year. So that's kind of my goal, is to be ready to really kind of upload everything in e-benefits and hit the submit button somewhere about October 5th. Just to give me more lead time, for if I have to do follow-up appointments, or they come back and they disapprove something, I have time to go back and get more documentation or diagnosis. So I think the sooner you can file that, the better. So that's really kind of my goal, is to be able to file that. So I mean, technically, I actually opened up a claim. So I think they call it like giving notice of claim. So you go into e-benefits, you hit the I'm going to submit a claim button. It'll kind of open up the parameters where you can go ahead and annotate ailments, and you can upload documentation to support that. So it's open in e-benefits. I think you have a year from the time you open it that you have to submit, or else it, I don't know, dissolves or something. You have to start over again. So it's open in there. I haven't actually uploaded anything yet, but I have been actively scrolling through my medical records on TRICARE, and going through and actually looking at all my diagnosis and all my encounters with medical professionals. So, and it actually kind of jogs your memory. You can actually see some, when you went to go see the doctor about certain, ailments, and you didn't even remember. Because typically when you go to a doctor, like, well, how long has it been bothering you? You're like, yeah, I don't know, maybe 2018 or so. And then you actually go back and look, you're like, oh, wow, actually in 2014, I was actually starting to see something about this. So kind of jogs your memory. So pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can also go to like whatever your local military hospital is that you're using for your military, um, the military hospital that's near you that you're using on a normal basis. You can go in there and do a records request. It takes about 2 weeks, I believe, is the turnaround time, and then they just dump everything and put on a CD and give it to you.
Yeah, the problem is I don't have a CD-ROM, man. Like, what I mean? You're like, can you dump that in my Google Drive? 'Cause like, then I'm gonna have to go buy a CD reader to go to my MacBook.
Right.
So, and that, yeah, and I realize that, but so I don't know, I was trying to be a little proactive, be like, well, what I can kind of download now, I just store it on, I made folders on Google Drive and just kind of dropped everything into each element. So, and then, I got some lists of some VSOs in the area that people have recommended. So at some point, because I'm still actively seeking care for some of the things that have come up. So I'm just wondering, okay, at what point do you kind of just like not stop, but like stop, the records that you're gonna actually upload, So I don't know, maybe sometime over the summer and the fall or something like that. So I can actually, send my entire medical file to one of these VSOs and have them kind of give me their recommendations on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious
So
to see how that all pans out and how it works out for you. Because, like I said, I didn't have the best of luck with it. And so you just basically went on to eBenefits and started the process there. You did some research and reading about the ailments and trying to connect up the ailments to the actual documentation. And then from there, once you get all that kind of put together, then you're going to reach out to the VSO.
yeah, just as kind of like because I was kind of like on the fence, like, do you really need a V? Because I don't know, how do I explain this? Like I'm very, like, I guess, cognizant of my own capability. Like I have high confidence in what I can accomplish. Like I feel like I'm a fairly exceptional person. So it's like, I mean, it's not like, rocket science filing a claim. And the fact that I'm still on active duty while I'm filing it, like that is the nexus. Like I'm still serving. So it's not like I'm going back to try to find a nexus from like 10 or 15 years earlier. So it's really just finding the actual documentation by a medical provider with the actual diagnosis. Like, you literally have no ACL in your left knee. You know what I mean? With, maybe the notes from the MRI and like, okay, well that's the diagnosis. Let's load that up under, knee pain and knee instability. So I don't know. So I really just kind of like but again, at the same time, you don't know what you don't know. I've never been through this process before. So obviously if I can get a VSO to just kind of give me a second look because maybe there's something I'm missing and so just just a second set of eyes, right? Because the last thing I want to do is me going in there all cocky thinking, oh, I got this, and then like my claim comes back and half of my claim is denied. I'm like, what the heck? And then then I'm going to triage mode trying to clean everything up. So yeah, I figured you can't be too prepared. So yeah, that's kind of my goal is to just kind of send everything to a VSO, just give, the second set of eyes. And obviously they're gonna have way more experience in the process than I do.
Anything else on the radar over the next couple weeks that you're looking at?
So obviously we already kind of talked about is meeting up with Andrew, my mentor, just kind of get some insight, right? Just kind of breaking in the world of policy. And I think we've talked about this before, but really it's, I don't want to say double hard, right? But it's like not only am I trying to break into a new organization, but I'm also trying to break into a new career field, like entirely. So as much insight as I can get about that, someone who's been in the field and someone who's kind of, I guess, gone up through the ranks of the policy sector. So yeah, kind of looking forward to that, continuing with the HillVets. So it's almost, I don't want to say it's on cruise control, but it's kind of like I feel like I'm kind of like in a groove right now. So, some things you can't just solve them, immediately. It just kind of takes time and you have to go through the process. So, yeah, I don't think I've got any like big hitters that are coming up. It's just kind of more of the same, right? Just getting treatment and diagnosis for these ailments and then kind of just exploring my potentially future career space.
Is there anything that you've like maybe discovered since you started doing like the retire, even when you started mentally retiring, that you discovered like maybe now that you found that you maybe missed something along the way so far? Reason I ask is because these things come up, right? And they're kind of like hiccup moments, and then you just kind of deal with it, and then you keep going. But in hindsight, like you don't really like those things might be important.
So I will tell you one thing that kind of came up on the radar that I didn't really think about, and now I am, and that is life insurance, right? So really, while you're in the military, you got the SGLI. It's almost like you don't even think about it. It's just it's there. You got it. You're safe. But then, kind of just like seeing trying to explore like okay what are your options after like you get out and kind of like even like what is the purpose of life insurance, right? Just not it's kind of like one of those things that's just kind of ingrained like you got to get it and like why and what's the purpose of it and everything like that. What's a good deal, what's not, difference between term and whole life, and now you've got like universal index life and like everyone's a marketer, right? Everyone's trying to get your money into their business and they'll basically tell you whatever they can to do that. So it's like I'm constantly, it's almost like giving them the stiff arm like no no no. So just trying to like really kind of figure out that space and projecting like what do you really need for life insurance and how long should it how long should the term be? Like, do you want it to be, is the purpose just to kind of get to 60 or 70 until you actually have like, some decent wealth built up where the insurance part isn't even really possible, like isn't really necessary at that point. So really just kind of exploring that because it's not something I've really had to at this point. Also, how the survivor benefit program, because I guess that's almost kind of like a life insurance policy. So it's like, okay, so what's more beneficial, the SBP or just getting like a term life insurance policy for 20 or 30 years? So just really kind of looking at all the options and how it kind of aligns with whatever my personal goal is and then trying to eliminate the ones that are complete ripoffs.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, no, I would say that's something 6 months ago, if you would have asked me about life insurance, I'm like, oh, like, what is that really important? Is that an important thing I should be thinking about? So no, yeah, it's something I kind of overlooked, but now I'm glad I've kind of gained some awareness for it, so I can dedicate some time into researching it.
Yeah. That and then regular health insurance once you get out. I mean, of course you got VA, you know,
Yeah.
TRICARE insurance, but that's not always the best option.
No, yeah, you're right, and I've kind of casually, talked to some people about it, even like some of our neighbors around here are like, retired military and seeing what they have and, their level of satisfaction in the area. So, my wife's already she's been on TRICARE standard for at least a year or so. So she's still kind of filling that out and providers in the area. So no, definitely another thing to, explore too as I get closer, exactly what I'm going to do. But yeah, life insurance, healthcare, things you kind of really don't think about when you're on active duty because you don't have to really. It's kind of decided for you almost. So it's like, yeah, you got to get ready to start making these adult decisions that, the rest of society has to deal with.
Weeks so far, it's been every 2 weeks. I'm just going to ask you if you've been binge watching, binge reading, or binge listening to anything, music, video, or book format that may or may not be related to your journey right now where you're at in it.
I don't know if I've been binging. So one thing I did kind of start doing, and I'm not sure if it was, I don't want to say it was like a New Year's resolution. It was something that just kind of evolved at the new year. But no, just trying to read more in general, I think. Um, So kind of forcing myself. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's like directly. I would say it's related to like kind of me evolving just as a person in general. It's not like I'm doing this just because I'm transitioning, but just trying to, I don't think you can have too much knowledge, right? So I've the first book I finished was I'm gonna look it up really quick, but it was Tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read that one?
Yeah,
Forgot.
I've read it today.
Sebastian Younger.
Oh, Junger, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so that was a really good one. That was actually really insightful. So I like that one. Right now, I'm rereading How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So that's a classic. I got through it once, but it was like years ago. But you forget over time. So yeah, no, I reactivated my Audible account because sometimes it's easier, right? If I'm on the bus or I'm driving or something like that, just trying to, be more efficient with my time. So yeah, just trying to read more in general. And then obviously I got the mandatory reading assignments through HillVets. So I'm pretty much done with rule number 2. So I mean, that's like almost 3 books in this early year. So I'm trying to just read more in general, just to give myself more perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you can ever read enough books. I read books nonstop. I do have one I can recommend for you that is probably really relevant. It's actually relevant to anybody in their midlife, like 40s or 50s or whatever. Called Falling Upward. I forget where I got the recommendation from, but the author's name is Richard Rohr, Rohr, and
Okay.
it's kind of like a biblical monk text kind of thing with a bunch of other like sociology and psychology and interesting stuff thrown into the mix. So may or may not be your cup of tea, but it's got a lot of good insights in it as far as splitting up the first half of life, your 20s and 30s, and possibly 40s, and then splitting up the second half of life and how that always doesn't like fall immediately in the middle. It's like sometimes people spend the first half of their life up to they're 60 years old before they actually mature and then dive into the second half of their life. So it's kind of an interesting perspective, especially now in this time and in this specific age. Like,
Yeah, no, I do. I feel like it's almost, yeah, like I don't want to say like changing the chapter. It's almost like you're starting a new book in life, right? It's like up to 40 basically. So, yeah, like my body's broken down a lot, but I feel like my mind obviously is stronger now than it's ever been. So, it's kind of like a give and take. I got to use my brain more and my biceps less.
trade offs.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I'm gonna let you get back to some icy hot and maybe a nice nap and a shower, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. But thanks for hopping back on here with me, and for everybody else out there in the audience. Stay tuned, more of these episodes, and thank you for listening. Everything's in the show notes, and timestamps are there. And if you do feel like this is bringing you some value, be sure to like and subscribe and all those little buttons at the bottom of the YouTube channel or wherever you're listening to or watching this. And until next time.